Well, welcome everyone to our special Show and Tell Pop-Up series, Early Childhood Innovation for Impact in a Crisis. My name is Kylie Burke. I'm a senior advisor with Promise Venture Studio and a lifelong early childhood educator and advocate. Today's event is part of a series that we're hosting that supports Promise's mission of catalyzing innovation and impact in early childhood. Show and Tell is designed to shine a spotlight on some of the innovative work taking place across the early childhood community, a community that has never needed innovation more than it does right now during this crisis. Families are under an unprecedented level of stress as they face uncertainty, economic hardship, and a lack of social supports. Thankfully, there are companies and organizations across the country that are stepping up to provide assistance and offer much needed support to families with young children and support for the people who care for them. WeeCare is one of those organizations. Today's event is designed to facilitate connections. So let's get started with our conversation with Jessica Chang. Jessica is the CEO of WeeCare, a mother and a preschool owner. Jessica co-founded WeeCare in 2017 to empower educators and childcare directors to start, fill to capacity, and efficiently operate a licensed home childcare business, and to eliminate parents' stress of finding high-quality care by matching them with the best small home daycare environment for their children. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kaylee, for inviting me to this wonderful event. I'm happy to share what we're doing during this time of the COVID pandemic.
So Jessica, WeeCare connects families with childcare providers while supporting providers with all the tools they need to manage their family childcare businesses. And while schools and businesses across the country have been forced to close their doors because of COVID-19, essential workers must still report to their jobs. We need them there. And that makes childcare an essential and critical service for the community right now. I know from our conversations that you and your team were paying really close attention to the evolving COVID-19 situation very early on, as we in the States were just starting to hear stories about it coming from China. You were able to use that information to make some really critical enhancements to your platform. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so pretty early on, we were hearing a lot of stories coming out of China. And we were also seeing how the rest of Asia was responding to the pandemic. Having gone through SARS myself, and also seeing how countries actually responded to it afterwards, there was definitely a moment in our own business that we're like, okay, what happens if it actually skips over and comes to the US? So pretty early on, we saw how China and a lot of Asian countries were putting importance on fever checks, and as a way of a preventative measure, and also to help keep businesses open. So we decided that we wanted to be more proactive on this, just in case that it did come over to the US. So in early March, we actually launched virtual temperature checks, which meant families and providers could actually get their temperatures verified while staying at home, so that before the start of the day, everyone had their temperature verified and felt that it was safe to actually go to daycare for that day.
Yeah, that's just incredible to me. I think on one of our conversations, you said something like, that's what's so great about technology, that you were able to see this, watch what was happening, and anticipate that need for the community is really remarkable. We have a shot of what that looks like. I think it'll kind of help people get a sense of what that really means and how you're able to verify it. So based on the work that you were doing already, serving the community, and then these enhancements to the platform, you have a really important partnership now with the city of Los Angeles. Can you tell us a little bit about that work?
Yeah, so that was actually, it happened really quickly. We had a lot of previous relationships with public entities. And one of the things that we were able to do was secure a partnership directly with the city of Los Angeles. And this is specifically, our partnership allows us to serve the 80,000 essential workers in LA and specifically meet the daycare demand. While these individuals are serving the front line, we're making sure to keep their families safe and to make sure that their children are continuously learning and in a safe environment.
Yeah,
The,
that's incredible.
and I think the big importance of this and where really technology can come in is our ability to adapt quickly, our access to real-time information. So the city of LA thought it was extremely useful to them that we knew which daycares were open and what real-time capacity was available in each of these daycares, so that we could actually help essential workers find the care that they need within 24 hours.
Yeah. And I imagine that these health checks are a big component of that. You talked a little bit about the importance of keeping like groups together. Can you talk about that a little bit for the folks listening today?
Yeah, so we have the ability to bunch essential workers together. So for example, if someone was a healthcare worker, we can actually place all healthcare workers in a certain daycare. If they were part of police, if they were part of fire, we could actually bunch them into actual daycares and keep the groups together, therefore trying to limit as much exposure to the outside as possible. This also allows us to actually keep track of information on potential hotspots, because we're doing the health checks and doing the temperature checks as well. And we're able to actually easily see if there's hotspots appearing.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so useful for communities to be able to have access to that kind of information. This is a lot. I mean, that one partnership is huge. How are you doing? How's WeeCare doing with scaling for that?
Oh yeah, we've been definitely on the other side of scaling supply as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Luckily, prior to this, we were already expanding nationwide. So as part of the multiple partnerships that we've been able to secure during the pandemic, we've significantly increased our supply, close to at least 20 to 30% growth month over month.
Yeah. And it does show you the extraordinary work that home-based providers, childcare providers are doing during this time. And as someone like you who has worked with so many childcare providers across the country, you've been a preschool owner yourself. What changes do you think we're going to see in the early childhood community moving forward, coming out of this time?
Yeah, so I actually was just on an early childcare call in the morning with the county, and there's going to be a lot of changes. I think the biggest one is that even when we do return back to some kind of normal, there's going to be a lot of restrictions put on childcare centers and also licensed family childcare as well. But most of them require us to step up our cleaning and sanitization, but also limit the amount of children each daycare provider can have, which actually puts an even bigger strain on a lot of childcare centers that are already running on very low margins. What I think is going to end up happening, and many articles have already been published about this, is that we're going to lose a lot of childcare centers over the next couple of years. So much so that maybe half of our capacity will be reduced in the next year. And this is where I think family childcare providers can actually step up. Because home daycares are generally smaller, we're already within the guidelines of the social distancing protocols that are being put in place. It's one provider for roughly 6 to 8 kids. So I think, one, there's going to be more and more family childcare providers that are going to step up to the plate. But two, I also think families are going to choose smaller settings as well, especially if they have 2 kids. They're less likely going to want to actually send them to 2 different locations and potentially expose their own family to 2 types of potential illnesses that are going to go through. So I think people are going to rethink how they're going to consume childcare and rethink that potentially smaller settings are going to be better for their families.
Yeah.
And probably the second part to it is there's going to be a lot of issues with paying for childcare. And this is where states, cities, counties will probably need to step up. I think one of the biggest things that are going to happen is the ones that are going to stay open, it's going to be harder for them to stay open because they're going to be running on smaller capacities, which means they will probably have to increase costs. And that cost is going to be burdened on to families. So it's extremely important for states, federal, local counties to actually step up and to provide a stipend program, just like the city of LA did for its essential workers.
Yeah, and I know that that was really critical, and there are other districts, cities, states that are doing that right now to be able to support the payment of childcare. We already had an issue in this country with access and affordability and quality, and certainly coming out of this, we'll probably see a lot of that exacerbated. I was just reading something the other day that the #2 concern of business owners, the second top of mind concern for them, is childcare for their employees. First, obviously, is just financial solvency of their business, but the next biggest concern is childcare for their employees. So this is certainly something we'll be watching closely as it continues to unfold. We'll continue to talk about it next week as we continue this series. And then on June 10th, we're having an event focused solely on childcare. So, but Jessica, how can the folks listening today support this important work that you're doing?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do is actually we support family childcare homes, and as part of it, we actually offer affordable and convenient option for families. The average FCC is roughly 40% cheaper than the market rates. So
Yes.
for us, it's about actually making sure that families have access to convenient and affordable care. So we're looking for partnerships with local and state leaders, R&Rs, and also corporations, especially when they're thinking about, hey, how do I keep my workforce? Do I offer corporate benefits for families so that I can keep my workforce here and working versus worried or stressed about childcare?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And for those in attendance today, you will see a poll that's popped up on your screen. Remember, the primary function of these events is to facilitate connections between folks doing meaningful work in service of young children and their families like Jessica, and connect her with all of you. This is an opportunity to support the critical work of ensuring that frontline worker families have the support they need right now, and that communities stay healthy and safe, and that the workforce is prepared when it is time to return to work, and that there's someplace lovely and wonderful and safe for their children to go. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you all so much for joining us today.